heard about layouts, and you've already heard about templates, and you've already heard about page spreads. But visual hierarchy is a really huge idea. And so what I want to let you know is that a yearbook design is best when it offers functionality, and functionality is when a page spread is compelling. That means your friends are so excited about the page that you've designed that they grab the book out of your hands and they show it to everyone they know. So you want your page spread to function so well that it just makes everyone excited, and it's so attractive to the eye, to the reader, that they just are so enthused about what they have in front of them. Okay, so a yearbook design is best when its functionality is compelling and attractive. I would write that down. Yearbook design is best when the functionality is compelling and attractive. Yearbook design is best when its functionality is compelling and attractive. Now there's a second idea when yearbook design is best, and that has to do with clarity. So that page spread might be really compelling and attractive, but if it doesn't tell a good story, what's the purpose? So clarity is essential. The story has to be effectively communicated through the page spread. So when you are looking at your page spread, you have to have a story. Those two pages in front of you, the left side and the right side, have to be connected somehow, and they have to tell some kind of a story. And so you have to be very clear about the kind of story you're going to tell on those two pages. So what's interesting is those two pages have to be very clear between the left and the right side, but those two pages have to be very clear within the entire yearbook. So it has to reflect the entire yearbook's theme. And by now, I'm sure that you all have had the conversation about your theme. So you might want to write this down. You have to be very clear. A yearbook design is best when you are very clear about your story, the story on the page spread and the story the yearbook is telling, just generally speaking. So a yearbook design is best when it is very clear about the story it is telling through the page spread and, generally speaking, throughout the entire yearbook. A third idea that is really important through yearbook design. Yearbook design is best when it offers consistency. So when you look at a page spread, you want everything on that page spread, every shape, every color, every picture, every word, every font that is used to create that word. You want everything on that page to be in harmony with everything else on that page. And you want to make sure that in harmony one to another, you have created an ease of readability. You want it to flow. You want it to make it easy for the reader to be able to read what's on the page in front of them. You don't want the colors to be screaming at them so that they just can't stand to look at it. And you don't want the pictures to be too small or too large with too much in it so that people can't figure out what's going on inside the pictures. So you want to make sure that consistency or harmony is within a page spread, because you want to be able to make it easy for people to read what's on the page. So yearbook design is best when it offers consistency or harmony within a page spread, because you want it to be easy for people to read. So a yearbook design is best when it offers consistency or harmony within all of the elements so that there's an ease of readability from one side of the page to the other. All right. So functionality, clarity, and consistency is gained or is made through layout design, something that you guys have been playing with, and PlickBooks. And PlickBooks is a really nice intuitive software program that has a lot of standard, safe kinds of ways to work, but it also has a lot of individuality that you can bring to the software platform, and you can create your own layout design as well. So in the functionality, clarity, and consistency that you want to create for your yearbook to be the best it possibly can be, layout design and layout design templates are the way to go. So we're going to be talking about what makes good layout designs and what makes, why use good templates. Visual hierarchy is a way that designers, and each of you are yearbook designers now. You've stepped into that role. You can't escape. That's your job. Your job is to be a designer of the yearbook. Your job is to use visual hierarchy to maximize a reader's experience with the page spread that you create. And you're going to do that by organizing layout design elements according to what you think is the most important thing that you want to put on that page. So visual hierarchy is what's most important and making it stand out. What's next and making it not as important as the most important, but giving it some little bit of flair, and then filling in with the rest of the content on that page that's in support of those primary and secondary ideas. So visual hierarchy is all about ordering what's most important. And that can be done in a lot of different ways. So this is using text only to get that idea across. And I have to be honest with you, this is absolutely true. You will read the white will read this first. You will read you second. And then you will read you will read this line next. You will probably not get into the left-hand side too quickly, but you'll probably read this little paragraph on the right, on the bottom. That little line of text next to the U at the top, you may or may not get up to that point, but it visually looks good. But do you see how this has been ordered so that the power is in that we'll read this first, and then the secondary importance all share the same color? Something to consider. So I grabbed this page. This is the right-hand side of the page spread. And I wanted to use this as a layout example for something that I thought was a pretty good idea. The primary heading and the copy that was used is right here in the top of the 2/3 of the layout. The Bruins hoop it up. That's a very clever little heading to use for the basketball, the girls basketball team. That was really, really nice. It's a nice large font. It's easy to read. It's right at eye level. You go right to it. And then if you look, you have the last season up here. And that's the secondary heading. And it has the secondary heading a little bit larger than this bottom area right here, but not as big as the primary heading. And it has the photo and copy right underneath it. Tells a little bit about the team seniors. There they all are together, kind of hamming it up a little bit for the photograph. And then below, right here, you have the tertiary heading and the photos and the copy, which essentially is just a list of who all is in the photo. Tertiary is a fancy way of saying third. So primary, secondary, and tertiary, heading, photo, and copy. So this person took the time, and it was a student who designed this. This person took the time to create a sense of order. They wanted to give the seniors a nice shot at importance. So they put them at the top of the page. So they kind of played a little bit with the order of importance. They knew that the entire girls basketball team needed to be given a nod. So Bruins Hoop It Up is really the primary heading. And I thought that they did a really nice job with this. It was a clever way to design this page. So here's some other examples of visual hierarchy in play. There are things called scale. I would write these down if I were you. Scale. Scale is putting the most important information largest. And then the second most important in a proportional kind of way you scale it down until the smaller pieces of information share the smaller sizes. Contrast. This is very important. Light and dark. They really give evidence to a visual pop in layout design. So you might want to consider contrast, light versus dark. Direction. It's always nice to play with direction. This horizontal examples of visual hierarchy, that's pretty typical. Most of the time in Western cultures, we read from left to right and from top to bottom. So mostly we see headlines in a horizontal kind of presentation. But this idea of using a vertical presentation is kind of nice. It kind of throws a little bit of excitement, a little bit of visual, excitement is a good word. It throws a little bit of difference into the picture and gets people a little bit of anticipation for what to expect on the page. So direction is a really nice visual element to use. And position. Usually people tend to put the most important thing on the top of the page. But remember, in that girls basketball example, they wanted to put the seniors at the top of the page. And that was very clever of them. They knew that they were secondary to the overall girls basketball page spread, but they wanted to give them kind of top billing. And that was kind of nice. But usually the position is the most important is at the top. But you can play with these things, always, you can play. So scale is all about giving the most important thing the largest amount of space. Contrast is always having opposing light and dark. Direction is having fun with the horizontal and vertical presentation. And position is usually the most important thing is at the top. You can have fun with that. Other visual hierarchy concepts include things like color. This is important to understand. Brighter colors grab attention. Think about that yellow light in traffic. That yellow light is yellow because it's supposed to grab your attention to wake you up so that you know that you're going to need to stop. So brighter colors, again, grab your attention in print as well. But you have to be careful because neon colors have their place, but they need to be used with discretion. If you use too much in the way of neon colors, it gives the viewer a headache, literally. It's psychologically proven. And it's not necessarily the best thing to use a whole lot of neon kinds of colors in a layout. So kind of spread that out a little bit if that's part of your palette for your yearbook theme. Muted colors tend to go backwards. Brighter colors come forward and muted colors go backwards. So they tend to blend into the design of a layout. So you can still read muted colors, but it is a blue against a darker blue background, a lighter blue against a darker blue. So you might want to keep that in mind as well. It gives a little bit of emphasis, but it's not as powerful as the white against the dark blue. So contrast is a partner to color. So keep that in mind. And again, light against dark is prominent, just as dark against light makes a bold statement. So brighter colors grab attention, brighter colors advance or come forward, muted colors or darker colors blend in with a design, they push backwards. They go backwards into the design. And then again, light against dark, contrast, and dark against light is a very good way to create bold statements. Fonts. Oh, we go crazy with fonts. Fonts used to be mysterious. People didn't have access to fonts the way we do now. People have particular fonts that they are really, really, really happy with. And in fact, there's a war online among what are called typographers, those people who design fonts. And there's the war about a font style called Comic Sans. People hate Comic Sans in the business world. Fortune 500 companies do not want their employees to use Comic Sans. So fonts carry power. Don't forget that. Fonts carry power. They can really tell a story, carry a theme to its a desired end. So what I'd like for you to do when you are employing your fonts, the fonts can organize your design, so use them really, really well. The kinds of fonts that you select should reflect the theme and the style of your yearbook. Now, a theme and style of your yearbook can be kind of confusing. So I give you an example right here. Let's say your yearbook staff chooses a surfer culture as the theme, the overall theme of the yearbook. So you can utilize the surfer culture in a lot of different ways to tell the story of the theme. But the style, we're not going to do 80s surfers. We're not going to do 90s surfers. We're not going to do 30s surfers. We're going to do surfers from the 60s. So then you have to look at the culture in America, in maybe California and Florida, about what the 60s looked like. And you want to interpret the 60s surfer culture in the yearbook. Does that make sense? Oh, I hope that makes sense. I don't see you, so I can't tell. But the font styles that are selected would then have to be a reflection of the 60s and the surfer culture. So if you have already created your theme, and if you have already created your fonts, but you're just starting to create your layouts, if you feel like you're not quite connected really well yet with your theme and your style of your yearbook, or your fonts might not be connected real tightly to it, you're at the beginning of the year. You can make some changes, but I would not make more than 3 choices for a font. You would have a font for headings. You would have a font for the secondary headings. So primary headings would be a font style. and secondary headings would be a font style. And then for captions and the copy of the context or the content of the pages, that would be a third font style. Okay, so here are some other visual hierarchy concepts to consider. When things are close together, like they are here, these three little squares, that's called proximity, and that indicates a relationship. And you often find this when you have headshots of team members next to each other. And then when you have things that are lined up, see how this square and proximity and A and this rectangle and alignment and the D and direct, they're all lined up. Alignment directs the eye. So we know that's a nice clean look. And then we have all this empty space. If you use this empty space, or otherwise known as negative space, otherwise known as white space in the publishing world, it creates some emphasis. It's okay to have some emptiness in a page spread. Use it judiciously. It creates a real elegance, a minimalist kind of elegance to some designs. And it's a very modern approach to print material and to website design as well. So proximity, things that are close to each other, indicate a relationship. Alignment directs the eye. And alignment, you could also create direction by moving things along a pathway. And you align everything along a pathway. That's a possibility as well. And so using the idea of negative space, otherwise known as white space, otherwise known as emptiness, is also a good feature to use in page spreads. Repetition unifies a layout design. Repeat, 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 repeat. You can repeat things large, and you can repeat them not in an orderly way, like I have shown here. They can be repeated in a random way. You can repeat color. You can repeat a word. You can repeat a shape. You can repeat a splash. If you have a theme of butterflies, you can repeat butterflies moving all through the yearbook. Repetition unifies a layout design. It unifies an entire yearbook. Using a grid offers further organizations, and you will find that most of the templates that are offered within the Plickbook templates are based on a grid format. And grids are wonderful, they're easy, and you'll see that they can be used in some very powerful ways. So repetition unifies a design, a layout design, or a yearbook. And grid offers further organization. Okay. Now, when I talked to you earlier about readability, and I mentioned that most Western cultures have the reading pattern of left to right and top to bottom, that is hugely important in signage. It's hugely important in web design. It's hugely important in lots and lots of print materials, from t-shirts to anything you can name that requires us making sense out of what we see. So there are two patterns that are commonly used when creating readability in layout designs. And one is a Z and one is an F. So you can see that you could have a headline here, and then you could lay out lots of different things coming down in a diagonal and across on the bottom in the Z. And in an, oh, sorry, whoops. And in the F, you can have a headline, a sub-headline, with lots of things in between here. So a Z and an F are common patterns that you would basically see in a readability for ease of being able to read the content on a page. So something to think about. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk to you about playing. You can play digitally or you can play with real paper and scissors and glue. Designers like to play, and they like to play with shapes. So when you look at these two, when you look at these two ideas here, you see that this has squares and a circle, rectangles, big rectangles, little rectangles, and even here, rectangles, little tiny skinny lines. They like to play with shape, and the shapes that they play with represent pictures and copy for page spreads. So when you play, and I highly recommend that you do, play with just shapes first, just shapes, and find shapes that you think are pleasing to you, and just lay them out. This is the left side of the page, this is the right side of the page, and play with them in multiple ways and see what you like. So this is a template that has been created by what's called mirrored. So this has just been copied and pasted by rotating it so that it is a mirror reflection of the left-hand side. So the right-hand side is a mirror reflection of the left-hand side. And we call that symmetrically balanced. So a template is something that can be created and it can be used multiple times throughout a yearbook. But if we did a yearbook with only this as a design, it would be kind of boring the entire time. So I highly recommend that you play with it. So this is that previous layout, that the bottom half has been cut apart and it's been rotated so that it is flipped, and it's still related, but it looks different. And so templates can be cut apart, they can be flipped, they can be mirrored, and they can be reorganized, and yet they are still visually related. And that's important. This again is a symmetrically balanced idea. Now, the one on the left is not. This is called an asymmetrically balanced layout design. There's some kind of rich power that asymmetry brings to a layout. It just brings out just a wonderful loop of energy. So if you begin at the upper left-hand side and make your way around like the Fibonacci sequence, you will make your way in the golden mean right around into, and you're trapped. You're trapped on the page spread. And that's what you want to do. You want to make it so that your page spread just makes people want to stay there. And that's kind of fun when you work with an asymmetrically balanced layout. So if ever you get stuck and you want an idea for something fresh in your layout, you might want to play with scissors, paper, and glue and just brainstorm with shape and see what you can come up with to make a little bit more excitement in your page spread. Okay, now here's some big ideas that you might want to consider with layouts. Now this is a layout that's called a columnar design, and that's basically speaking columns. And columns need to be organized in such a way that they avoid being in the center of the page, because the center is something called the gutter, and that's where the book folds. And you want nothing of importance really being in the center of the book where the book folds. So you want to make sure that when you are designing with columns in mind, that you keep the information towards the center and the photos towards the outside, because you want the first thing for people to see are the photos, and they're then led to the content, the information, towards the center. Okay, so be consistent with the placement of columns in spread design. So for clubs, they had like 3 or 4 different pages. So they played with the placement of the color for this particular layout spread, but each one of the clubs was a columnar design like this. So there was a very nice consistency and functionality and clarity of the story of the clubs at this school. Now here's this grid. Now this grid was 2 different 2-page spreads. Now the gutter went right here. We had to play real carefully with this so that we didn't get any kid in the middle of the gutter. But I have to tell you, this was beautiful, and this was a layout from a 2020 yearbook. So COVID was at the high, and we were all in lockdown, and these are seniors who didn't get a prom, they didn't get graduation, it was a mess for these kids. These kids were beautiful kids. Anyway, a senior brought a design for a t-shirt that was based on an album, and she redesigned it somewhat to meet the needs of her fellow classmates. And that's the designer right here. And this is a little bit of what she wanted to tell her classmates. And the yearbook staff convinced the admin that the kids needed to have a free shirt. And so there were like 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 2 2-page spreads, 4, no, maybe 3 2-page spreads of seniors and their t-shirts. And we were able to get a picture of everybody putting their t-shirt on. It was very socially distanced and the whole 9 yards. We got everybody's photo in this. So we made sure that we got a gift for the kids. Anyway, grid design. It worked really well to tell this story. Okay, so evenly spaced rectangles, consistent pattern. Use those grids and rulers that are available in Plickbooks to create the shape that you need. But notice that the grid doesn't take up the entire 2 pages. We have a wonderful heading, and we have some copy with a secondary heading on the right. And proximity was used to tell her story as well. Then this is called a geometric design. Columns were used for the story. Again, this is from that COVID book. And this student was desperate to figure out what he could do to tell the story, and decided that the combination of lines and curves and shapes was something that would give him creative freedom. And so he combined the idea of the geometry of both the columns and shapes to tell this story. Be not afraid to experiment and give yourself a little bit of freedom. Lead photos, huge. Okay, our track team, track and field was, we didn't have a lot of photos because of COVID. And I have to tell you that the lead photo was an amazing idea for this particular page spread. So, okay, copy is all the words that are on the page, whether they're the list of names, the headlines, the quotes that you might have, a story that you might tell, the caption of a photograph. It is every single thing that it requires a word. There are copy headlines like the primary and the secondaries that we were talking about. And there are copy captions. I love this. Do you all know what a colophon is? Mr. Warden, do you know what a colophon is?
No, I don't think I've ever heard that.
Okay, a colophon is a page spread that tells the story about how the yearbook was made. This is a fabulous one from Garden Grove High School. Absolutely beautiful. Here is everything that is about how the book was made and the special thank yous. And then here's the team and beautiful little cutouts with all these wonderful little captions about the kinds of things that they said. And here's the advisor right here in his apron telling everybody that he's got some food for them. I think he kept them well fed. So captions provide the action, the fun, the memories, and the better they are told, the better the memories are embedded into the book. And Jessica told you really good ways in which to do that. So here is what your assignment is. Go back to your layout designs. And in those layout designs, I'd like you to try to get visual hierarchy, to organize the order of importance of the content of your page spread. I want you to think about, will I use symmetry? Will I use asymmetry? Will I use columnar? Will I use grid or geometric design? You must have primary and secondary headings. You must have lead and reference photographs, and you must have copy with both headlines and captions. So how do you know that you will have a successful spread design? Your functionality will be compelling and attractive. Clarity will be effective communication throughout the entire layout. Consistency, you will be able to read your page spread so well. It will be easy to figure out what's going on that page. You, as the yearbook designer, will have total control of the person who is looking at that page.